Happening today, the bankruptcy court hearing for cryptocurrency exchange company FTX will be held this morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protections. The founder of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, has been charged with criminal fraud and conspiracy. Let's bring in a legal expert now to sort all this out. Mitchell Epner is back. Mitchell, we talked about this earlier this week. We've got first of all, let me introduce you properly. You're a member of the firm Rottenberg, Lippman, Rich, PC. You're a former federal prosecutor as well. So Sam Bankman-Fried is in trouble with criminal court, and he's in the Bahamas right now fighting extradition. His company is facing a bankruptcy hearing. So can you explain to us kind of how this works, how this goes, and kind of what this hearing will be about today?
So Mitch, thank you for having me on again. So what happens in a situation like this, where you have a company that is just hopelessly underwater, is that the company is now being run by an interim CEO, and the whole purpose is the company is being run for the benefit of its creditors. The people who owned equity are wiped out, but the people who are owed money by FTX, either because they were employees, because they were vendors, or because they had assets that were being held by FTX, they need to be paid back, which means that whatever accounts receivable FTX has, or whatever money's gone out the door in recent time, that is money that the new CEO will try to claw back in and then distribute out to the creditors, and there's an order in which they get paid out.
Well, and for the finer points of bankruptcy law, I might not be your source here, but I'm looking at the chapters right now. Chapter 7 is liquidation under bankruptcy code. Chapter 11 is reorganization. FTX is being accused of fraud, like there was never anything there in the real world, and this was fake the entire time. Sam Bankman-Fried is being compared to Bernie Madoff. Why is this a reorganization as opposed to a liquidation? How is this company going to exist at all after this bankruptcy hearing?
It is standard operating procedure for big firms like Sullivan and Cromwell to start things as a Chapter 11. Eventually, I expect that this will be converted to a Chapter 7.
So it will eventually be liquidated, and that is how you get the most money for the creditors that FTX owes money to.
Yes, and that is the entire purpose of running the company at this point. It is not to keep it as a going concern. It is to get the money back to the people who are owed money.
All right, so there's some of the finer technical points. Let's talk about some of the Hollywood implications here. Will any of the stars be held accountable that represented FTX? We know Steph Curry is one of them. We know there's a former Patriots fan that said he put his life savings into FTX after Tom Brady was seen on some of its commercials. Is there any way through bankruptcy or any criminal proceeding to actually hold those folks accountable for the product that they endorse?
So let's take this in two parts. Part number one is whether or not they can be held liable for the fraud, and only people who knew of the fraud can be held liable for the fraud, and that's either criminally or civilly. But second is, well, can assets that were given to these people be clawed back? And the answer to that is yes. Now, I haven't seen the deals that Steph Curry or Larry David or Tom Brady signed, but what's been reported is that they got a lot of equity. Well, that equity is worth, in technical terms, bupkis. So that doesn't need to be clawed back because it's worthless. To the extent they got cash, there may be claims that it should be clawed back, but if the endorsement was given for fair market value, that will be hard to claw back. So that's where those people are.
One final question for you. I find it interesting that the government has charged Sam Bankman-Fried not only with fraud in FTX, but also some campaign finance violations. How deep do you think this investigation will go? And we're not talking about bankruptcy here. We're talking about the criminal charges. How deep do you think the investigation will go? How many dots do you think the government intends to connect here?
So this is something that's very real and could go far. What is accused, and it's done cryptically, is that, sorry for the pun, is that Sam Bankman-Fried was not just giving money in his own name, but he was having everybody who worked at FTX give money, except it wasn't really their money. He was just putting money into their name to evade campaign finance limits. And that is something that people have been sent to jail for. In fact, Jared Kushner's father, Charlie Kushner, went to jail precisely for doing that in New Jersey in the early 2000s. It's hard to prosecute the politicians for that because you have to show that they knew that all of these people were frauds and just fronts for Sam Bankman-Fried. But the number one thing for politicians in this situation is give back the money. Give it back so that the people who are trying to collect the money and then distribute it to the creditors can get their money back.
Okay, I said that was my last question. This is my actual last question. It's going to be a quick one. How much would you pay for a Donald Trump digital online trading card in NFT form?
So whatever it cost for me to receive it, you'd have to pay me in order to get it, so long as I could immediately toss it out. You know, that whole world of NFTs is part of this crazy cryptocurrency world, and I think it's all going to shake out.
All right, so you would pay negative dollars for a Trump NFT. Got it. That is Mitchell Epner, member of the firm Rottenberg, Lippman, Rich PC, former federal prosecutor himself. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come.